12 unmarked vessels intercept Russian Baltic Fleet convoy. Britain's secret naval force just proved they've been watching everything. What happened in international waters, 47 miles from Kaliningrad, will redefine naval intelligence operations. And Russia never saw them coming. November 4, 2025. 11:52 p.m. Baltic Sea. Russian Northern Fleet deploys 6 vessels toward Kaliningrad. 1 Udaloy-class destroyer, 2 Steregushchi-class corvettes, 3 support ships. Combined value, $1.8 billion. Mission classified. Route through international waters. Standard transit. Except tonight. They weren't alone. 12 civilian vessels had been shadowing them for 3 days, tracking every movement, recording every transmission, mapping every capability. These weren't merchants. This was Britain's shadow fleet, and they were about to make themselves known. The concept began 18 months ago. Royal Navy faced budget constraints, couldn't match Russian vessel numbers, couldn't maintain constant Baltic presence. Traditional surveillance too obvious, too expensive, too limited. So British naval intelligence tried something different. Recruited civilian vessels, fishing trawlers, container ships, research vessels, equipped them with military-grade sensors, encrypted communications, defensive systems, crewed them with retired Royal Navy personnel, created a fleet that doesn't exist. On paper, a fleet that operates in plain sight, invisible because it looks ordinary. 12 vessels. Operating cost, $340 million annually. Intelligence value, incalculable. Each Shadow Fleet vessel carried sophisticated equipment, hull-mounted passive sonar arrays. Detection range, 85 miles. Encrypted satellite uplinks, real-time data transmission to Northwood headquarters. Long-range thermal cameras. Ship identification at 12 miles. Electronic intelligence gathering systems. Radio intercept. Radar emissions analysis. Encrypted communications monitoring. Some vessels carried more. Defensive electronic warfare suites. Anti-drone systems. Even covert weapons, disguised as cargo containers. Deck cranes that weren't cranes. The Shadow Fleet wasn't just watching, it was armed. The Russian convoy departed Severomorsk on October 11th, heading south through Norwegian Sea, around Denmark, into Baltic. Standard route. Expected timeline, 4 days. Shadow Fleet picked them up 200 miles north of Scotland. British trawler Northern Star made first contact. Passive sonar detection. Reported to Northwood. Within 6 hours, 4 more Shadow Fleet vessels converged, maintaining distance, appearing random, just civilian traffic. Nothing suspicious. The Russians noticed fishing vessels, cargo ships, research platforms, saw exactly what they expected to see. Commercial activity in international waters. They never suspected coordination. By October 13th, the Russian convoy entered Baltic proper, 8 Shadow Fleet vessels now tracking, forming a loose perimeter, 15 to 40 miles from Russian formation, close enough to monitor, far enough to seem coincidental. At Northwood, intelligence officers watched real-time feeds, sonar data, thermal imagery, communications intercepts, building complete picture, Russian movements, formation patterns, communication protocols, operational procedures, every detail recorded, every weakness noted. This wasn't just surveillance, this was intelligence harvest. What's your assessment of shadow warfare tactics? Type A for covert intelligence gathering. Type B for direct engagement capability. Share your thoughts. Russian naval intelligence suspected nothing. Their own sensors showed civilian traffic. Normal density for Baltic shipping lanes. No military vessels. No apparent threats. At 9:14 p.m. on October 14th, Russian convoy commander received new orders. Encrypted transmission from Kaliningrad. Change course. Proceed to coordinates 55.2 Gray N, 18.7 Gray E. Conduct acoustic testing. Submarine detection exercises. Map ocean floor. Standard operations. except those coordinates placed them 47 miles from Swedish territorial waters, close to undersea cables, near natural gas pipelines, suspiciously close to critical infrastructure. Shadow Fleet intercepted the transmission, couldn't decrypt it, but analyzed metadata, transmission origin, signal strength, frequency patterns. Within minutes, British signals intelligence at GCHQ was working the problem. By 10:23 p.m., they'd broken the encryption. Not completely, but enough. New Russian destination identified. Proximity to infrastructure noted. Potential threat assessed. Decision required. Continue passive surveillance or make presence known. Northwood consulted London. Ministry of Defense consulted Downing Street. At 11:07 p.m., authorization came through. Proceed to Phase 2. Make contact. At 11:52 p.m., 12 Shadow Fleet vessels altered course, simultaneously, converging on Russian convoy position from 4 directions: north, south, east, west, maintaining international waters status, but closing distance. The movement was too coordinated to be coincidental, too precise to be random. Russian radar operators noticed immediately. 12 contacts, all civilian signatures, all converging. Confusion in Russian command. Coincidence? Harassment? Something else? At 11:58 p.m., Russian destroyer attempted radio contact. International maritime frequency. Identified vessels approaching. Requested intentions. Shadow Fleet responded. In English, in Russian, in perfect naval protocol. Civilian research vessels conducting scientific operations. Coordinates filed with maritime authorities. All legal? All proper. All completely unthreatening. Russian commander didn't believe it. Ordered his convoy to alter course. Northeast, away from converging vessels. Shadow Fleet altered course too. Maintaining intercept vectors. Still converging, still closing. At 12:04 a.m., October 15th, Russian destroyer went to alert status. Fire control radars active, weapons systems armed, AK-130 deck guns tracking targets. This was international waters. No shots fired, but message clear: stay back. Shadow Fleet ignored the warning. Continued approach. At 12:09 a.m., distance closed to 8 miles. Shadow Fleet vessels simultaneously activated electronic warfare systems. Russian radar screens erupted, jamming across multiple frequencies. Their fire control systems lost locks. Communications degraded, GPS signals corrupted. Electronic chaos. But no weapons fired, no physical attack, just electromagnetic dominance. For 47 seconds. Then silence. Systems returned to normal, radars clear. Communications restored, GPS functional. But the message was delivered. We can blind you, whenever we want. The Russian commander understood immediately. These weren't civilian vessels. This was military operation. He transmitted emergency to Kaliningrad, under electronic attack, unknown assets, requesting support. Response came quickly. 2 Su-24 aircraft scrambled. Flight time, 18 minutes. Hold position, maintain formation, support inbound. Shadow Fleet withdrew at 12:11 a.m., not retreating, mission accomplished, 12 vessels dispersed, returning to commercial patterns. By the time Russian aircraft arrived at 12:29 a.m., they found only civilian ships. Fishing vessels, container carriers, research platforms, all broadcasting proper identification, all following legal routes, all completely innocent. Russian pilots circled, searched, found nothing suspicious, because there was nothing to find. The Shadow Fleet had vanished back into civilian traffic, invisible again. What would you have done as Russian commander? Continue mission or return to port after electronic warfare demonstration? Comment your decision below. Russian convoy continued to assigned coordinates, wary now, cautious. They arrived at 1:47 a.m., began acoustic testing, mapping operations. But something was different. They were still being watched. Shadow Fleet hadn't left. 4 vessels maintained distant observation, recording everything, Russian acoustic signatures, sonar frequencies, testing procedures, operational patterns, hours of intelligence, transmitted in real time to Northwood, from there to NATO headquarters. By dawn, every Western Navy had copies. Russian convoy never knew. Completed their mission, departed at 6:15 a.m., believing they'd operated unobserved. Wrong. The intelligence harvest was extraordinary. Complete acoustic profile of Udaloy-class destroyer. Sonar capabilities documented. Electronic warfare vulnerabilities mapped. Communication protocols recorded. Formation tactics observed. Command procedures analyzed. But the real value wasn't technical, it was psychological. Russia now knew Britain had assets they couldn't identify, couldn't track, couldn't counter. Naval operations in Baltic were being watched by vessels that looked civilian. That appeared harmless. That could strike electronically at any moment. Paranoia is expensive. Uncertainty is paralyzing. Shadow Fleet achieved both. British Ministry of Defence released statement at 9 a.m. October 15th. Acknowledged civilian research vessels operating in Baltic. Scientific missions properly authorized. Denied any military involvement. Denied electronic warfare. Suggested Russian equipment malfunctions. Classic plausible deniability. Russia couldn't prove otherwise. Civilian vessels operating legally. No weapons fired. No laws broken. International waters. International rights. But everyone knew. Britain had demonstrated new capability. Gray zone warfare. Deniable operations. Invisible fleet. NATO response was immediate. Quiet. Interested. 12 nations requested briefings. How did it work? What were capabilities? Could they replicate? British naval intelligence conducted classified presentations, shared some details, withheld others. Within weeks, France announced similar program. Germany followed, Poland, Norway, Denmark. The Shadow Fleet concept was spreading. Russian Baltic Fleet would now face not 12 British vessels, but potentially hundreds, from multiple nations, all looking civilian, all watching, all capable. The naval intelligence balance shifted overnight. If you're finding this level of intelligence operations analysis valuable, show your support with a quick like on this video. Russian countermeasures began immediately. Additional intelligence vessels deployed to Baltic. Monitoring civilian traffic. Attempting identification. But the math was impossible. Thousands of civilian vessels transit Baltic monthly. Which ones were military? Which were genuine? No way to know. Russian assets spread thin, resources wasted, exactly what Britain intended. Shadow Fleet required 12 vessels. Russian response required dozens. Cost-benefit ratio heavily favored Britain. Technology analysis revealed Shadow Fleet's advantages. Modern sensors miniaturized significantly. Military-grade equipment now fits in civilian spaces. Satellite communications enable real-time coordination. Encrypted systems prevent interception. Artificial intelligence processes data automatically, identifies patterns, flags anomalies. Human analysts make decisions. But AI does the heavy lifting. 12 vessels generate more intelligence than 50 traditional platforms. Because they're always there, always watching, always recording, and looking completely innocent. Strategic implications ripple globally. China watches closely. South China Sea has thousands of civilian vessels, fishing fleets, cargo ships, research vessels. Which ones are surveillance platforms? How many are already operating? U.S. Navy asks questions. Could America field Shadow Fleet? Pacific is enormous. Traditional surveillance incomplete. Civilian vessels could fill gaps. Provide persistent coverage. Deniable presence. Pentagon studies the concept. Budget requests follow. Expect American Shadow Fleet within 2 years. For Russia, this is nightmare scenario. Baltic Fleet operates in contested waters, always watched by satellites, by NATO ships, by submarines, now by civilian vessels they can't identify. Every operation monitored, every movement tracked, Every communication intercepted, naval secrecy compromised, operational security impossible. The Baltic has become transparent for NATO, opaque for Russia, asymmetric advantage of massive proportions. The 12 Shadow Fleet vessels returned to routine operations. Fishing, cargo transport, scientific research, legitimate commercial activity. Except they're still watching, still recording, still transmitting. British naval intelligence receives constant feeds, tracks every Russian vessel, maps every movement, builds comprehensive database. When next crisis comes, Britain will know Russian capabilities completely. We'll understand their doctrine, we'll predict their actions. Intelligence advantage translates to tactical advantage. Tactical advantage wins battles. Training programs expanded rapidly. Royal Navy identifies additional civilian vessels, suitable for conversion. Crew recruitment focuses on veterans, people who understand naval operations, who think tactically, who maintain operational security. Each new Shadow Fleet vessel cost $28 million to equip, compared to $580 million for conventional surveillance ship. The economics are compelling. For $340 million, Britain fields 12 vessels. For same cost, traditional Navy gets half a frigate. Shadow Fleet provides more coverage, more flexibility, more deniability. Modern warfare requires modern solutions. This kind of in-depth operational analysis takes significant time and research. Subscribe to ensure you catch every breakdown we produce. Allied response validates the concept. NATO maritime operations now include Shadow Fleet coordination, standardized equipment packages, common communication protocols, shared intelligence databases. 27 civilian vessels currently operating as covert surveillance platforms across Baltic, Mediterranean, Black Sea, Norwegian Sea, all coordinated, all sharing data, all watching potential adversaries. The invisible navy is real, growing, effective. Russia attempted countermeasure at sea. October 23rd, 8 days after Shadow Fleet revelation, Russian corvette harassed British trawler in international waters. Close approach, simulated weapons lock, intimidation tactics. The trawler responded. Electronic warfare shutdown. Brief, precise, devastating. Russian corvette lost all electronics for 90 seconds. Blind, deaf, helpless. Then systems restored. Another message delivered. Harassment has consequences. Russians backed off. Haven't attempted similar operations since. Shadow Fleet established credibility through demonstration. International law implications are complex. Civilian vessels in international waters are legal. Surveillance is legal. Electronic warfare in self-defense is arguably legal. Russia cannot prove military operations without revealing their own intelligence failures. Britain maintains plausible deniability. Legal experts debate. Maritime lawyers argue. Meanwhile, Shadow Fleet continues operations. Because law is one thing, capability is another, and Britain proved they have both. Was Britain's Shadow Fleet operation a brilliant intelligence coup or dangerous escalation of gray zone warfare? What's your take? Leave your analysis below. The fishing trawler, Northern Star, is currently 140 miles northeast of Gdansk, monitoring Russian movements, recording acoustic signatures, looking exactly like a fishing vessel. Because it is a fishing vessel. That also happens to conduct military surveillance. The container ship Baltic Pride transits past Kaliningrad weekly, regular schedule, predictable route, boring commercial operation. Except its containers hold sensors. Its crew are intelligence specialists. Its mission is anything but boring. This is modern naval warfare, hidden in plain sight, effective because it's invisible, powerful because it's deniable. Traditional navies operate in open, visible platforms, clear identification, established protocols. Shadow Fleet operates in ambiguity, civilian appearance, military capability, legal presence, intelligence mission. The line between military and civilian has blurred. Deliberately, strategically, effectively, Russia cannot counter what they cannot identify, cannot stop what operates legally, cannot protest what appears innocent. This is asymmetric warfare evolved, naval intelligence reimagined, and Britain wrote the playbook. The Royal Navy's official strength is 19 destroyers and frigates, publicly listed, internationally recognized. But the real strength includes 12 Shadow Fleet vessels, plus more being recruited. The number is classified. The capability is proven. The concept is expanding. Britain's naval power isn't shrinking. It's adapting, evolving, innovating. While adversaries count traditional hulls, Britain built invisible fleet. While competitors focus on firepower, Britain focused on information. The result is asymmetric advantage. Information dominance. Strategic superiority achieved through innovation rather than expenditure. Your input determines what we investigate next. What covert operations need analysis? What secret programs deserve exposure? Drop your suggestions and subscribe to stay connected to our ongoing coverage. This is the future. Not announced, not obvious, not traditional. Naval power projected through civilian vessels. Intelligence gathered by invisible platforms. Operations conducted with complete deniability. Shadow Fleet isn't supplementing conventional Navy. It's redefining what Navy means. Other nations recognize this. Adopt the concept. Expand the model. Within 5 years, every major maritime power will operate shadow fleets. The ocean surface will appear civilian. The reality will be military. Ships will look innocent. Capabilities will be lethal. This is gray zone warfare. This is modern naval strategy. This is how sea power works now. Freedom of the seas requires constant vigilance. Democracy demands information advantage. Security needs invisible guardians. Britain's Shadow Fleet provides all three. 12 vessels that appear ordinary. That operate legally, that watch everything. Russia learned this on October 14th, in international waters, 47 miles from Kaliningrad, when civilian ships proved they were anything but civilian, when fishing vessels demonstrated electronic warfare capability, when the invisible became visible just long enough to deliver a message. We're watching. We're capable. We're everywhere. And you'll never know which vessel is which. That uncertainty is the point. That ambiguity is the weapon. That deniability is the shield. This is how Britain dominates, not through size, through intelligence, through innovation, through vessels that don't exist, conducting missions that never happened, achieving results that changed everything.